Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the control panel in front of him. The lights blinked in patterns he was still learning to understand. 3 months ago, he had been working at a repair shop on Earth. Now he was flying through space on a ship bigger than any building he had ever seen. The UES Horizon was humanity's third deep space exploration vessel. Jake never thought he would be on it. He had barely passed the tests to join the Colonial Defense Academy. His grades were average, his physical scores were nothing special, and he was younger than most of the other crew members. But here he was 23 years old and traveling to places no human had ever been before. Captain Lisa Rodriguez walked onto the bridge. She was a tough woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been commanding ships for 15 years, but this was her first time leading a mission beyond Earth's solar system. Everyone on the ship was learning as they went. "Status report," she said, looking at the main screen that showed the stars ahead of them. "All systems normal, Captain," replied Lieutenant Ben Carter from the navigation station. "We're approaching the edge of the system. Long-range sensors are picking up something big." Jake looked up from his station. He was responsible for communications and basic ship operations. It was not the most exciting job, but it was important. "Captain, I'm getting some kind of signal. It's not like anything in our databases." Captain Rodriguez walked over to Jake's station. "Can you clean it up?" Jake worked at the controls, adjusting frequencies and filters. Slowly, the static cleared and a voice came through the speakers. It was speaking in a language none of them had ever heard, but the tone was clear. It was a warning. "That doesn't sound friendly," said Lieutenant Carter. Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed across the bridge as the tactical officer called out, "Multiple contacts approaching fast. They're big, Captain. Really big." Through the main window, they could see ships unlike anything humans had ever built. They were dark and angular, covered with sharp edges and glowing red lights. The largest one was the size of a small city, and it was heading straight for them. "Open a channel," Captain Rodriguez ordered. "All frequencies." Jake's hands moved quickly over his controls. "Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Lisa Rodriguez of the United Earthship Horizon. We are explorers from the planet Earth. We come in peace and request permission to pass through your space." The response came immediately. The voice was deep and harsh, speaking in perfect English. "Human vessel, you have entered the territory of the Vexithari Empire. You will surrender your ship and submit to boarding, or you will be destroyed." Captain Rodriguez looked at her crew. They were all young and inexperienced, but they were Earth's best hope for making contact with alien life. "We are not here to fight. We only wish to explore and learn. Perhaps we can meet and discuss this peacefully." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice spoke again. "You wish to meet? Very well. You will come aboard our flagship. Bring no weapons. Any sign of aggression will result in your immediate destruction." The alien ships surrounded the horizon. The largest one extended a docking tube that connected to their airlock. Captain Rodriguez gathered her diplomatic team, which included Jake because he was the best at working with the communication systems. "Remember," she told them as they walked to the airlock, "we're here to make friends, not enemies. Be respectful, be careful, and follow my lead." The airlock opened, and they stepped into the alien ship. The corridors were huge, built for beings much larger than humans. The walls were covered with strange symbols and the air smelled like metal, and something else Jake couldn't identify. They were escorted by 2 alien guards who wore armor that looked like it was made from black metal. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but Jake could see glowing red eyes through the visors. They walked in silence through the ship until they reached a massive chamber. The room was filled with aliens, from different species. Some looked like giant insects, others were covered in fur or scales. They all turned to stare at the humans as they entered. At the far end of the room, on a throne-like chair, sat the largest alien Jake had ever imagined. He was over 9 feet tall, with dark green scales that seemed to shift and move in the light. His arms were thick with muscle, and his hands ended in claws that looked like they could cut through steel. His head was elongated with yellow eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. When he smiled, Jake could see rows of sharp teeth. "I am Kethvar," the alien said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I am the apex hunter of the Vexthari Empire. I have conquered 200 worlds and defeated the champions of 50 different species. I have never been beaten in combat." "Captain." Rodriguez stepped forward. "I am Captain Lisa Rodriguez. This is my crew. We come from Earth and we're honored to meet you." Kethvar stood up from his throne. Even at a distance, he was intimidating. "Honored? You enter our space without permission. You claim to come in peace, but you carry weapons on your ship. How? Do I know you are not here to spy on us or plan an attack?" "We have no intention of attacking anyone," Captain Rodriguez said. "Our weapons are only for defense. We're explorers, seeking to learn about the galaxy and make friends with other species." Several of the aliens in the room made sounds that might have been laughter. Kethvar tilted his head, studying the humans. Friends? An interesting concept. In this galaxy, there are only the strong and the weak, the predators and the prey. Which are you, humans? Jake felt his heart racing. This was not going the way they had hoped. The alien leader was clearly testing them, trying to decide if humans were a threat or just another weak species to be conquered. "We're neither," Jake said, speaking without thinking. "We're just people trying to figure out our place in the universe." The room went quiet. Every alien eye turned to look at Jake. Captain Rodriguez gave him a warning look, but it was too late. He had already spoken. Kethvar stepped down from his throne and walked closer to the humans. Each step echoed through the chamber. "You interrupt your leader to speak? You show no fear of the apex hunter? Either you are very brave or very foolish, young human." Jake swallowed hard. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. It's just that where we come from, we believe problems can be solved by talking, not fighting." "Talking?" Kethvar's laugh was like the sound of rocks grinding together. "You think words are stronger than claws? You think negotiation is better than the test of combat?" "Yes," Jake said, surprising himself with his honesty. "Fighting only proves who's stronger. Talking helps us understand each other." The other aliens in the room began to murmur among themselves. Some seemed amused, others appeared offended. Kethvar raised his hand, and the room fell silent again. "You insult the ways of the Vexithari," he said, his voice growing colder. "You suggest that our traditions are wrong, that our strength means nothing." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, trying to defuse the situation. "What my crew member meant was—" "No," Kethvar interrupted, his eyes fixed on Jake. "Let the young one speak for himself. Do you truly believe that your human way is superior to ours?" Jake knew he was in trouble, but he couldn't take back what he had said. "I think every species has something valuable to offer. Maybe we could learn from each other instead of fighting." Kethvar was now standing directly in front of Jake. Up close, he was even more terrifying. His scales seemed to shimmer with their own light, and his breath smelled like sulfur. "You have challenged the honor of the Vexthari. According to our laws, this challenge must be answered." "I wasn't challenging anyone," Jake said quickly. "I was just sharing an opinion." "In the Vexthari Empire, there is no difference." Kethvar raised his clawed hand and pointed at Jake. "I challenge you to single combat. If you win, your species will be granted safe passage through our territory. If you lose, your ship will be destroyed and your crew will become our slaves." The room erupted in excitement. The aliens had not expected to see a challenge issued to the newcomers. Captain Rodriguez tried to object, but Kethvar silenced her with a look. "The challenge has been made," he said. "It cannot be withdrawn. Your young warrior has 1 hour to prepare. The combat will take place in our arena, witnessed by representatives of the galaxy's greatest civilizations." Jake felt like the floor was falling away beneath his feet. He was about to fight the most dangerous alien in the galaxy, and he had no idea how he was going to survive. Jake sat on a metal bench in a small room that served as his preparation area. His hands were shaking, and he could not make them stop. In less than an hour, he would be fighting the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. He had never been in a real fight in his life. Captain Rodriguez paced back and forth in front of him. "This is insane. You're not a soldier, Jake. You're a communications officer. There has to be another way." Lieutenant Carter stood by the door, keeping watch. The aliens won't listen to reason. I tried talking to their guards, but they just keep saying the challenge cannot be withdrawn. Jake looked down at his hands. They were soft hands, the hands of someone who fixed machines and worked with computers. They were not the hands of a warrior. Maybe I can forfeit. Just give up before the fight starts. That won't work, Captain Rodriguez said. I asked about it. In their culture, giving up without fighting is the same as being a coward. They would execute you and then destroy our ship anyway. A knock came at the door. One of the alien guards entered, carrying something in his arms. It was a set of armor, black metal plates connected with flexible joints. The alien set it down on the bench next to Jake. For the human, the guard said in broken English. Traditional combat gear. You wear or you die quickly. After the guard left, Jake picked up one of the armor pieces. It was heavier than he expected, and it was made for someone much larger than him. When he tried to put it on, the chest plate hung loose on his body and the arm guards were too long. This isn't going to help much, he said, adjusting the straps as best he could. Captain Rodriguez helped him with the back plates. Just try to stay alive long enough for us to figure something out. Keep moving, don't let him corner you, and look for any advantage you can find. What kind of advantage am I supposed to find against a 9-foot alien killing machine? I don't know, but you're smart. You figure things out. That's why you're on this ship. Jake almost laughed. I'm on this ship because I was the only person left who could work the communication systems. That's not exactly combat training. Another knock came at the door. This time it was a different alien, one with blue skin and 4 arms. Time for combat, it said. Follow me. Jake stood up, the ill-fitting armor clanking as he moved. He picked up the plasma sidearm they had given him. It was a basic weapon, nothing special, but it was better than fighting with his bare hands. They walked through the corridors of the alien ship. Other creatures watched them pass, some making clicking sounds, others growling low in their throats. Jake could feel their eyes on him, and he knew they all expected him to die. The arena was enormous. It was a circular room with high walls and a domed ceiling. Rows of seats rose up on all sides, filled with aliens from dozens of different species. In the center was a flat fighting area, covered with strange symbols and markings. As Jake entered the arena, the crowd began to make noise. Some roared, others hissed, and a few made sounds like breaking glass. None of it sounded friendly. Kethvar was already waiting in the center of the arena. He had changed into ceremonial armor that was even more impressive than what he had worn before. It was silver and black with spikes along the shoulders and arms. In his hands he held 2 curved energy blades that glowed with blue light. Welcome, young human, Kethvar called out, his voice carrying easily across the arena. I hope you have made peace with your gods because you will meet them soon. Jake walked to the center of the arena, his armor rattling with each step. Close, Kethvar was even more terrifying than before. His muscles bulged under his armor, and his claws had been sharpened to razor points. An alien that looked like a giant bird stepped forward. It seemed to be some kind of referee or judge. Combat will begin when I give the signal, it announced. Fight continues until one warrior yields or dies. Are both fighters ready? Kethvar raised his energy blades above his head. The crowd cheered. Jake drew his plasma weapon and tried to look confident. Ready, he said, though his voice cracked a little. The bird alien raised one wing. Begin! Kethvar did not charge immediately like Jake expected. Instead, he began to circle slowly, his energy blades weaving patterns in the air. He was putting on a show for the crowd, demonstrating his skill and grace. Tell me, small human, Kethvar said as he moved. What is your name? Jake Morrison, Jake replied, keeping his weapon pointed at the alien warrior. Jake Morrison, a simple name for a simple creature. Do you know how many champions I have killed in this arena? Jake kept turning to face Kethvar as the alien circled. Him. No, I don't. 47. The greatest fighters from the strongest species in the galaxy. Some were larger than me. Some were faster. Some had weapons that could cut through solid steel. Kethavar's laugh echoed off the arena walls. None of them could defeat me. That's really impressive, Jake said, and he meant it. How long have you been fighting? Kethavar paused in his circling. He seemed surprised by the question. How long? Yeah. I mean, to get that good at something, you must have been training for years. Decades, maybe. I have been the apex hunter for over 2 centuries, Kethavar said, resuming his movement. I began training when I was barely more than a hatchling. Jake nodded, genuinely interested despite his fear. 200 years? That's amazing. What was your first fight like? The crowd began to murmur. This was not the kind of conversation they expected to hear in a death match. Kethavar stopped circling again. My first fight? Why do you ask such things? I'm curious. I've never met anyone like you before. Where I come from, we don't have warriors like this. The idea of training for centuries to become the best at something is fascinating to me. You are about to die and you want to discuss my training? Jake shrugged, the motion awkward in his oversized armor. Well, if I'm going to die, I might as well learn something interesting first. That's how humans are, I guess. We always want to know more about things. Kethavar studied Jake for a long moment. Then, without warning, he lunged forward with incredible speed. Jake barely had time to dive to the side as the energy blade sliced through the air where he had been standing. Jake rolled across the arena floor and came up running. Kethavar pursued him, his movements fluid and precise. Jake fired his plasma weapon, but the shots went wide as he stumbled over his own feet. You fight like a frightened animal, Kethavar called out, slashing at Jake again. Jake ducked under the swing and scrambled away. I fight like someone who's never done this before, he called back, because I haven't. Never fought? Not even in training? Nope. First time. Jake jumped over a low barrier in the arena floor. We had some basic combat classes at the academy, but nothing like this. Kethavar leaped over the same barrier with ease. Then how did you become a warrior worthy of representing your species? I'm not a warrior, Jake said, dodging another attack. I'm just a guy who fixes communication equipment. I never wanted to fight anyone. This seemed to confuse Kethavar even more. He paused his attack for a moment. Your leader sent a non-warrior to face me? They didn't send me. I volunteered by accident when I said talking was better than fighting. Jake took advantage of the pause to catch his breath. Honestly, I think there's been a big misunderstanding. The crowd was getting restless. They had come to see a quick, brutal fight, not a conversation. Some of them began to boo and hiss. Kethavar seemed to remember where he was. He charged at Jake again, this time with more serious intent. Jake ran toward the edge of the arena, but Kethavar was faster. The alien warrior caught up and swung his blade in a wide arc. Jake threw himself backward, landing hard on the arena floor. The energy blade missed him by inches, but he could feel the heat from it on his face. Stop running and fight, Kethavar demanded. Jake rolled to his feet and raised his plasma weapon. Okay, but can I ask you something first? What now? That move you just did with the spinning blade attack, that was really impressive. Is that a traditional Vexithari technique? Kethavar blinked his yellow eyes. You want to know about my fighting techniques while we are fighting? Sure. I mean, I'm probably going to lose anyway, so I might as well appreciate the artistry involved. For the first time since the fight began, Kethavar looked genuinely puzzled. Artistry? Yeah. The way you move, the precision of your attacks, the timing. It's like watching a master craftsman at work. Even if I don't survive this, I'll have seen something incredible. Kethavar lowered his weapon slightly. You speak strangely for someone about to die. Jake kept his plasma weapon ready, but he relaxed his stance a little. I speak like a human. We're curious about everything, even things that might kill us. Especially things that might kill us, actually. Your species learns from observing danger. We learn from observing everything. That's how we figured out space travel, how we built our ships, how we developed our technology. We watch, we ask, questions we try to understand. Kethavar was silent for a moment, thinking. Then he raised his energy blades again. Enough talk. It is time to finish this. He charged forward with a roar that echoed through the arena. Jake knew he could not outrun the alien warrior forever. It was time to try something different. Instead of running away, Jake ran toward Keithvar. The alien was so surprised by this that he hesitated for a split second. Jake slid under Kethvar's outstretched arms and came up on the other side. Jake stared down at Kethvar, who was still kneeling on the arena floor. The massive alien warrior had placed his energy blades in front of him like an offering. The entire arena was silent, as if everyone was holding their breath. "I don't understand," Jake said quietly. "What's happening?" An elderly alien with wrinkled gray skin and 6 arms stepped forward from the crowd. He wore robes covered in symbols and carried a staff made of some kind of glowing crystal. When he spoke, his voice was ancient and filled with authority. "Young human, you have witnessed something that has not occurred in over 1,000 years, the submission of honor. When a Vexathari warrior is defeated but shown mercy and respect by their conqueror, they may choose to bind themselves in service." Jake looked back at Kethvar, who had not moved from his kneeling position. "Bind themselves? Like slavery?" "No," the old alien continued. "This is sacred bond. The warrior chooses freely to serve one who has proven themselves worthy. It cannot be forced, and it cannot be broken except by death or formal release." Captain Rodriguez pushed through the crowd of aliens and ran onto the arena floor. "Jake, what's going on? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, Captain, but I think I may have accidentally started something I don't understand." The old alien approached them, moving slowly with the help of his staff. "I am Elder Zephyrus of the Galactic Council. I have studied the laws and customs of hundreds of species for over 3 centuries. What has happened here today will change everything." "Change everything how?" Captain Rodriguez asked. "Kethvar is not just any warrior. He is the apex hunter, the most feared being in this galaxy. For 200 years he has been undefeated. Entire worlds have surrendered rather than face him in battle. And now, he has submitted to a human." Jake felt a sick feeling in his stomach. "I didn't want this to happen. I just didn't want to kill him." Elder Zephyrus studied Jake with ancient, wise eyes. "That is precisely why it happened. The submission of honor can only occur when the victor shows true mercy, not weakness. You had the power to destroy your enemy, but you chose compassion instead. This is why Kethvar recognizes you as worthy." Kethvar finally raised his head. His yellow eyes were fixed on Jake. "Master," he said, his deep voice carrying easily across the silent arena. "What are your orders?" "Orders?" Jake took a step back. "I don't have any orders. I don't want to be anyone's master." "The bond has been formed," Elder Zephyrus explained. "It cannot be undone by simply wishing it away. There are rituals that must be performed, ceremonies that must be completed. Until then, Kethvar is bound to serve you." The crowd in the arena began to murmur among themselves. Jake could see representatives from dozens of different species talking excitedly, pointing at him and Kethvar. Some looked frightened, others appeared angry, and a few seemed amazed. "This is going to cause problems, isn't it?" Jake asked. "Young human," Elder Zephyrus said, "you have no idea how big the problems will be." Over the next few hours, Jake learned just how right the Elder was. News of Kethvar's submission spread through the galaxy faster than light travel. Every species, every government, every organization wanted to know more about the humans who had somehow tamed the apex hunter. Jake found himself in a conference room aboard the Vexathari flagship, surrounded by alien diplomats and military commanders. Kethvar stood behind his chair like a bodyguard, still wearing his ceremonial armor but no longer carrying weapons. "This is unacceptable," declared an insect-like alien with multiple eyes and clicking mandibles. "The Zentari Collective has lost 17 colonies to Vexathari aggression. How do we know the humans are not working with them?" "The humans knew nothing of our existence until today," replied another alien that looked like a walking tree. "Their technology is primitive compared to most species in this galaxy. They cannot have planned this." Captain Rodriguez tried to maintain order. "We came here in peace, seeking only to explore and make contact with other species. We had no knowledge of your conflicts or your politics." A blue-skinned alien with tentacles instead of arms leaned forward across the table. Yet your subordinate has somehow accomplished what no warrior in the galaxy has managed. He has defeated Kethavar in single combat. I didn't defeat him, Jake protested. The fight was basically a draw. I just chose not to kill him when I had the chance. You held a weapon to the head of the apex hunter, said the insect alien. In any civilized society, that constitutes victory. Kethavar spoke for the first time since the meeting began. The human speaks truth. He could have ended my life, but he showed mercy. This is why I have chosen to serve him. The room erupted in arguments. Some aliens insisted that the submission was invalid because Jake was not a proper warrior. Others claimed that it proved humans were secretly advanced and dangerous. A few suggested that the entire thing was some kind of trick. Elder Zephyrus raised his staff, and the room gradually fell quiet. The laws are clear. The submission of honor has been properly performed according to ancient Vexthari tradition. Whether we approve or not, the bond exists. What does this mean for the balance of power in this galaxy? Asked the tree-like alien. That remains to be seen, Elder Zephyrus replied. But I suggest we all proceed carefully. The humans are new to our part of space, and they clearly have much to learn about our ways. After several more hours of discussion, the meeting ended without any clear resolution. The various alien representatives returned to their ships to report to their governments. Jake was left feeling overwhelmed and confused. Captain Rodriguez found him sitting alone in his quarters, staring out the window at the stars. Kethavar was standing nearby, as he had been doing since the submission. The alien warrior had not left Jake's side for more than a few minutes at a time. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I have no idea what I'm doing, Captain. 3 days ago I was a nobody from Earth who fixed communication equipment. Now I apparently own the galaxy's most dangerous alien." "You don't own him," Captain Rodriguez said. "From what I understand, it's more like a partnership." Jake looked over at Kethavar. "Is that right? Are we partners?" Kethavar considered the question carefully. "The bond of service means I must obey your commands and protect your life, but it is not slavery. I chose this freely because I believe you are worthy of respect." "But why? I'm not a warrior. I'm not a leader. I'm just a regular person who got lucky." "That is precisely why," Kethavar said. "In 200 years of fighting, I have faced every kind of warrior this galaxy has produced. Strong ones, fast ones, clever ones, brutal ones. But I have never faced someone who showed interest in understanding me, rather than defeating me." Jake thought about this. "You mean when I asked about your training and your fighting techniques?" "Yes. Most opponents either fear me or hate me. You were curious about me. You treated me like a person worth knowing, not just an obstacle to overcome." Captain Rodriguez smiled. "That's very human of you, Jake. We're always trying to understand things, even when we probably shouldn't." "Perhaps that is your species' greatest strength," Kethavar said. "Most beings in this galaxy see only enemies or allies. You see potential friends." A chime sounded from the communication system. Lieutenant Carter's voice came through the speakers. "Captain, we're receiving messages from Earth. Command wants a full report on what happened here." Captain Rodriguez sighed. "I'm not sure they're going to believe this. Jake, you need to prepare yourself. When we get back to Earth, you're going to be famous. The first human to make contact with hostile aliens, and you somehow managed to turn their greatest warrior into an ally. I don't want to be famous, I just want to go back to fixing communication equipment." "I'm afraid that's not going to be possible," Captain Rodriguez said. "Like it or not, you're now Earth's most important diplomatic asset. Every government in the galaxy is going to want to study you, to figure out how you did what you did." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. What if I can't do it again? What if this was just a fluke? Kethavar stepped forward. "Master, may I speak freely?" "You don't have to call me Master, and yes, you can always speak freely. You did not defeat me through strength or skill. You defeated me by being yourself, by showing curiosity instead of fear, mercy instead of cruelty, interest instead of hatred. These are not things that can be faked or learned. They are part of who you are." But what about all these political complications? I don't know anything about galactic politics. Neither did I when I first became Apex Hunter, Kethvar replied. I learned by making mistakes and trying to do better. You will learn the same way. Captain Rodriguez stood up. We should get some rest. Tomorrow we begin the journey back to Earth and we have a lot of reports to write. Jake, try not to worry. Too much. You've done something incredible here, even if you don't fully understand it yet. After she left, Jake continued to sit by the window. The alien fleet was still visible outside, dozens of ships from different species. He had never imagined that the galaxy was so full of life, so full of different ways of thinking and being. Kethvar, he said after a while. Yes? What's it like being bound to serve someone? Does it feel wrong? Kethvar was quiet for a moment. For most of my life, I have been alone. Feared and respected, but alone. Other Vexthari were too intimidated to approach me. 3 weeks had passed since the incident in the Vexthari arena. The UES Horizon was traveling through space toward a neutral space station called Haven Point. Jake had spent most of that time trying to understand his new situation and getting to know Kethvar better. The alien warrior had proven to be surprisingly good company. When he was not standing guard or training in the ship's cargo bay, he would sit with Jake and answer questions about the galaxy. Jake learned about dozens of different alien species, their cultures, their conflicts, and their histories. Centauri Collective controls about 40 star systems, Kethvar explained as they looked at a galactic map on Jake's computer screen. They are insects, but they think like machines. Everything is organized, planned, efficient. What about these blue ones? Jake pointed to another section of the map. The Aquatic Federation. They breathe water instead of air, so they have to wear special suits when they visit other species. They are peaceful, but very proud. They do not like to be seen as weak. Jake studied the map with interest. There were so many different colors representing different governments and species. How do you keep track of all of this? When you have conquered as many worlds as I have, you learn quickly. Each species has different strengths and weaknesses, different ways of fighting, different ways of thinking. Do you miss it? The conquering, I mean. Kethvar considered the question. I miss the challenge, but I do not miss the loneliness. Fighting is simple. Understanding is more difficult, but more rewarding. Captain Rodriguez entered the room, carrying a data pad with official-looking documents. Jake, we've received new orders from Earth Command. They want us to continue our diplomatic mission with you as the official alien relations specialist. Me? But I don't know what I'm doing. Apparently, that doesn't matter. The brass thinks your success with Kethvar proves you have a natural talent for this kind of work. Jake looked at the data pad she handed him. It contained information about Haven Point, their next destination. The space station was built by several species working together, a neutral place where different governments could meet and trade. According to this, there are representatives from over 30 different species at Haven Point right now, Jake said. They're all there for some kind of trade conference. That's right. And word has already spread about what happened with Kethvar. Everyone wants to meet the human who tamed the apex hunter. Kethvar made a sound that might have been laughter. I was not tamed. I chose to serve someone worthy of respect. Try explaining that to a galaxy full of species who have been afraid of you for 2 centuries, Captain Rodriguez said. 2 days later, the Horizon docked at Haven Point. The space station was enormous, built like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space. Different sections were designed for different types of aliens, with varying gravity, atmosphere, and temperature controls. Jake, Captain Rodriguez, and Kethvar walked through the main docking area. Other beings stopped and stared as they passed. Some whispered to each other, others took pictures with strange devices, and a few simply backed away in fear. This is uncomfortable, Jake said quietly. You will get used to it, Kethvar replied. Fame is a burden that comes with great deeds. They made their way to the diplomatic quarter of the station. Here the corridors were wider and more elegant, designed to accommodate important visitors from across the galaxy. Their first meeting was with a delegation from the Zentari Collective. The Zentari were exactly as Kethvar had described them. They looked like giant ants, but they wore clothing and carried themselves with dignity. Their leader, who introduced herself as Prime Coordinator Zixtal, had forearms and compound eyes that seemed to look in several directions at once. "Human Jake Morrison," she said in a voice that clicked and buzzed. "We have heard much about you. The collective is interested in establishing trade relations with your species." "That sounds great," Jake replied. "What kind of trade are you thinking about?" "We have advanced manufacturing capabilities. We can produce goods quickly and efficiently. In exchange, we would like access to your communication technologies." Jake looked confused. "Our communication technologies? But they're not very advanced compared to most species we've met." Prime Coordinator Zixtal's compound eyes focused on him. "Perhaps not in terms of raw capability, but your methods are unusual. The way you approach problems, the questions you ask, the solutions you find. This interests us." The meeting continued for an hour, with the Zentari asking detailed questions about human culture and technology. Jake answered as best he could, though he often had to admit he did not know much about subjects outside his area of expertise. Their next meeting was with representatives from the Stellar Kingdom, a group of proud, warlike aliens who looked like giant cats. Their leader, General Rathmore, was less diplomatic than the Zentari had been. "So you are the human who defeated Kethvar," he said, studying Jake with golden eyes. "You do not look like much." "I get that a lot," Jake replied. "But I didn't really defeat him. We just had a misunderstanding that got out of hand." General Rathmore laughed, showing sharp teeth. "A misunderstanding that ended with the galaxy's greatest warrior kneeling before you. The Stellar Kingdom respects strength. We would like to test this strength ourselves." Jake felt his heart sink. "You want to fight me?" "Not me personally, but we have brought our finest young warriors with us to this station. They are eager to prove themselves against the human who bested the apex hunter." Kethvar stepped forward. "No one will challenge my master without first going through me." "Your master?" General Rathmore's eyes narrowed. "Interesting. The mighty Kethvar calls a human his master. Perhaps the stories are true after all." Captain Rodriguez intervened before the situation could escalate. "We're here for diplomatic talks, not combat. Surely there are better ways to demonstrate our species' capabilities." "Perhaps," General Rathmore said. "We will consider this, but know that the Stellar Kingdom values action over words. If you want our respect, you must earn it." After the meeting ended, Jake sat in the station's observation lounge, looking out at the stars. Other aliens came and went, some stopping, to stare at him before continuing on their way. Kethvar stood nearby as always. "I don't think I'm cut out for this," Jake said. "These people expect me to be some kind of great leader or warrior, but I'm just a regular guy who got lucky." "You continue to underestimate yourself," Kethvar replied. "Do you think the Zentari would offer trade agreements to someone they saw as weak? Do you think General Rathmore would show respect to someone he considered worthless? Maybe they're just being polite. The Stellar Kingdom is never polite. They are direct and honest about their opinions. If General Rathmore saw you as weak, he would have said so immediately." Jake was about to respond when a commotion erupted near the entrance to the lounge. Aliens were shouting and running in different directions. Emergency alarms began to sound throughout the station. Captain Rodriguez appeared at Jake's side, her face grim. "We have a problem. The station is under attack by raiders. They call themselves the Ravager Fleet." "Raiders?" Jake asked. "Pirates, essentially. They attack trade stations and diplomatic meetings, stealing whatever they can and killing anyone who resists. Their leader is someone called Drex the Destroyer." Kethvar's entire demeanor changed. His muscles tensed and his claws extended slightly. "Drex is here?" "You know him?" Captain Rodriguez asked. "I know of him. He is a brutal killer who has enhanced himself with mechanical implants. He has been trying to claim the title of Apex Hunter for years, but he has never dared to challenge me directly." The station shook as something hit it hard. Through the observation windows, they could see dark ships attacking the station's defenses. The raiders' vessels were ugly things, covered with spikes and weapons. A voice came over the station's communication system. It was harsh and electronic, clearly coming from someone with artificial vocal cords. "Attention, inhabitants of Haven Point. This is Drex the Destroyer. Surrender all valuable cargo and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with death." The station's defense systems were firing back at the attacking ships, but they were clearly outgunned. More raider vessels kept appearing, and the station's shields were beginning to fail. "We need to get to the ship," Captain Rodriguez said. "If we can reach the horizon, we might be able to help defend the station." They made their way through corridors filled with panicked aliens. Some were trying to reach escape pods, others were barricading themselves in secure areas. The station's security forces were setting up defensive positions, but they looked overwhelmed. As they reached the docking bay where the horizon was berthed, they found their path blocked by a group of raiders. These were not like any aliens Jake had seen before. They were a mix of different species, all heavily modified with mechanical parts. Some had robotic arms, others had artificial eyes that glowed red in the dim light. "Well, well," said their leader, a creature that might once have been humanoid but was now more machine than flesh. "Kethvar, the apex hunter. My boss has been looking forward to meeting you." Kethvar moved to stand between the raiders and Jake. "Tell Drex that if he wants to face me, he should come himself instead of sending pawns." "Oh, he's coming," the raider laughed. "In fact, he's right behind us." The docking bay filled with tension as Kethvar and Drex circled each other. Jake could hear the hum of Drex's mechanical parts and the scraping of his metal claws against the floor. The raider's cybernetic eye glowed brighter as he prepared to attack. 200 years I have waited for this moment," Drex said, his voice mixing organic growls with electronic distortion. 200 years of conquering worlds and destroying enemies, all to prove I am stronger than the great Kethvar." "You have wasted 200 years, Kethvar replied calmly. "Strength is not about killing the most enemies or destroying the most worlds. True strength comes from knowing when to fight and when to show mercy." Drex laughed, and the sound echoed off the metal walls. "Mercy? Look where mercy has brought you. Serving a weak human child who cannot even defend himself." Jake wanted to object, to say that he never asked Kethvar to serve him, but he knew this was not the time. This fight was about more than just him. It was about two different ways of looking at power and strength. Without warning, Drex lunged forward. His mechanical claws sparked with electricity as they slashed through the air where Kethvar had been standing. But the apex hunter was no longer there. He had moved with incredible speed, dodging the attack and striking back with his own claws. The blow that would have torn through normal flesh barely scratched Drex's armored hide. The raider spun around, swinging his massive cybernetic arm in a wide arc. Kethvar ducked under it, but the wind from the swing was strong enough to knock Jake backward. "Is this the best the famous apex hunter can do?" Drex taunted. "Your time serving the human has made you soft." Kethvar did not reply. He was focused entirely on the fight, looking for openings in Drex's defense. But the raider's mechanical enhancements made him faster and stronger than any opponent Kethvar had faced before. Drex charged forward again, this time managing to catch Kethvar with a glancing blow from his electrified claws. Kethvar staggered, and Jake could see burn marks on his scales where the electricity had hit him. "You see?" Drex said to the watching raiders. "Flesh is weak. Only through mechanical perfection can true power be achieved." Jake watched in growing horror as his friend struggled against the enhanced raider. Kethvar was skilled and experienced, but Drex's cybernetic improvements were giving him a clear advantage. With each exchange, Kethvar seemed to be moving a little slower, taking a little more damage. Captain Rodriguez moved closer to Jake. "We need to do something. Kethvar is losing." "But what can we do? This is single combat. If we interfere, we might make things worse." "Jake," she said urgently, "look at Drex's left shoulder. Do you see that?" Jake squinted at the fighting aliens. There, where Drex's mechanical arm connected to his shoulder, he could see a small panel that sparked occasionally when the raider moved too quickly. "It's a power coupling," Jake realized. "The electricity from his claws is overloading his system." "Can you tell Kethvar?" Jake looked at the fierce battle taking place just a few meters away. Both aliens were moving so fast that it was hard to follow their movements. But he had to try. "Kethavar," he called out. "The left shoulder, the power coupling is overloading." Kethavar heard him but could not respond. Drex pressed his attack, forcing the apex hunter to focus entirely on defense. The raider's claws came, dangerously close to Kethavar's throat, and Jake could see that his friend was tiring. "Pathetic," Drex snarled. "The mighty Kethavar needs help from his human pet." That was when Jake noticed something else. Every time Drex used his electrified claws, the power coupling on his shoulder sparked more violently, and every time it sparked, Drex's movements became slightly less coordinated for just a moment. "Kethavar!" Jake shouted again. "Make him use the electric claws every time he does, the coupling overloads." This time, Kethavar was able to act on the information. Instead of trying to avoid Drex's claws, he began to provoke the raider into using them more often. He would dart in close, then pull back just far enough to avoid the strikes, forcing Drex to swing repeatedly with his most powerful weapons. Sparks flew from Drex's shoulder with increasing frequency. The raider seemed to realize something was wrong, but he could not resist the opportunity to land a killing blow on his hated enemy. "What are you doing?" Drex demanded. "Fight me properly." "I am fighting you properly," Kethavar replied. "You are the one who chose to replace your natural strength with mechanical tricks." Drex roared in anger and unleashed a flurry of electric strikes. His claws moved so fast they were almost invisible, but Kethavar managed to stay just out of reach. The power coupling on Drex's shoulder was now sparking continuously, and the smell of burning circuits filled the air. Jake continued to watch and analyze. "Kethavar, the coupling is about to fail. When it does, his left arm will be paralyzed for a few seconds." Sure enough, as Drex attempted one more massive strike, the power coupling finally overloaded completely. Sparks flew, smoke poured from the connection, and Drex's left arm went limp. Kethavar did not waste the opportunity. He struck with precision, his claws finding the gap in Drex's armor where the failed coupling had left him vulnerable. The raider stumbled backward, clutching his damaged shoulder. "Impossible," Drex gasped. "My enhancements are perfect. They cannot fail." "Nothing is perfect," Kethavar said, breathing heavily but standing tall. "That is why adaptability is more valuable than raw power." Drex looked around at his raiders, who were watching in stunned silence. Their leader, the one they had thought was invincible, had been defeated by the combination of Kethavar's skill and Jake's observations. "This is not over," Drex snarled. "I will repair myself and return. I will hunt you across the galaxy until I have my revenge." "No," Kethavar said firmly. "You will not." He moved faster than Jake could follow, striking Drex in several vital points. The raider collapsed to the floor, his cybernetic systems failing one by one. Within moments, the self-proclaimed destroyer was nothing more than scrap metal and cooling flesh. The remaining raiders looked at each other uncertainly. Without their leader, they had no reason to continue fighting. One by one, they began to back away toward their ships. "Wait," Jake called out to them. "You don't have to live like this. There are other ways to make a living that don't involve hurting people." One of the raiders, a female alien with mechanical legs, paused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you could choose to do something constructive instead of destructive. Help build things instead of tearing them down. There are plenty of places in the galaxy that could use skilled workers." The raider looked confused. "But we are criminals. Pirates. No one would trust us." "Everyone deserves a second chance," Jake said. "If you're willing to change, there are people who will help you." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. "The boy is right. The Earth Colonial Authority has rehabilitation programs for former criminals. If you're serious about changing your lives, we can help." Several of the raiders exchanged glances. The idea of giving up their destructive lifestyle had apparently never occurred to them before. "Why would you help us?" asked another raider. "We just tried to kill you." "Because that's what humans do," Jake said simply. "We believe people can change if they want to. We believe in giving everyone a chance to be better than they were." The raider with mechanical legs stepped forward. I am tired of running and fighting and destroying. If there is truly another way, I would like to learn about it. There is, Jake assured her. It won't be easy, but it's possible. Over the next few hours, as the station's security forces restored order, Jake found himself talking with several of the former raiders. Some were skeptical, others were hopeful, but all of them seemed interested in the possibility of a different life. Kethvar watched these conversations with interest. "You continue to surprise me," he said to Jake. "Most beings would have simply driven away the defeated enemies. You offer them friendship instead." "They're not enemies anymore," Jake replied. "They're just people who made bad choices and need help making better ones." "This is why I chose to serve you," Kethvar said. "Not because you defeated me in combat, but because you see possibilities where others see only problems." Captain Rodriguez joined them as they watched the former raiders being processed for the rehabilitation program. "You know, Jake, you've started something here. Word is going to spread about what happened today. The fact that you turned enemies into allies, that you found a way to end the conflict without more bloodshed." "I just did what seemed right," Jake said. "That's exactly the point. You have a natural instinct for finding peaceful solutions to violent problems. That's a rare gift, and the galaxy needs more of it." Elder Zephyrus approached them, moving slowly with his crystal staff. "Young human, I have been observing your actions since the arena incident. Today has confirmed what I suspected. You are not just a lucky amateur who stumbled into victory. You are something new." "What do you mean?" "You represent a different way of thinking about power and conflict. Most species in this galaxy see strength as the ability to dominate others. You see strength as the ability to understand others and help them become better. This is a form of leadership that we have not seen before." Jake looked around at the various aliens working together to repair the station, at the former raiders being helped instead of imprisoned, at Kethvar standing beside him as a friend rather than a servant.